Often considered as our sister planet, Venus has always been a sort of mystery to scientists and astronomers alike. Once believed to be a habitable oasis, just like Earth, numerous astronomical events have now changed the surface of Venus, making it no longer hospitable. Or is it? Recent studies and discoveries by scientists and probes have begun to indicate Venus might not exactly be the hellhole we once thought it to be. What could these new discoveries be? Keep watching till the end to find out. Number 10. Venus and our Earth. Venus and Earth are similar in size, composition, and mass, but they differ from each other because there are neither oceans nor human life on Venus, and the daily temperatures on Venus reach 484 degrees Celsius. During the day, the temperature can be so high it can melt lead. The dense atmosphere consists of carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid, which causes a greenhouse effect by trapping heat. Venus rotates every 225 Earth days in a circular orbit around the Sun. Venus slowly rotates clockwise around its axis, which is called retrograde rotation because it corresponds to the opposite direction of the other 8 planets. Number 9. Brightest planet in our solar system. Right now, the 2 planets getting the most attention in our evening sky are the gas giants of the solar system. Saturn, which through even a small telescope boasts a spectacular system of rings, and Jupiter, which features a large disk crossed by gaseous bands and a retinue of 4 bright satellites that change their positions relative to each other from hour to hour and night to night. Both planets are readily visible in the southwestern evening sky soon after nightfall. And yet, both of these behemoths are far inferior in brightness to the brightest planet in the sky, Venus. That's right, our sister planet is so bright right now that depending on where you are in the world, you can see it before the sun sets. Number 8. Venus's dual identity. As Venus travels around the Sun inside Earth's orbit, it alternates regularly from evening to morning sky and back, spending about 9.5 months as an evening star and about the same length of time as a morning star. This dual identity is actually a deep part of its history and discovery, because, due to how Venus was perceived in the sky, the Greeks thought that it wasn't a planet, but 2 different stars. It wasn't until Pythagoras that we realized that they were actually the same thing and not a star, but a planet. And once Galileo got time to observe the planet, he further confirmed what it was and helped displace the very much held belief that Earth was the center of our universe. Definitely not. Now that we've honestly gotten the chance to observe Venus more with modern technology, what are some of the things that we've honestly found on the planet? Number 7. Craters on Venus. One such big discovery is that of craters. One of the more imposing ones that people can't help but take a look at is the Meade crater. This impact crater is so large that it has a diameter of 168 miles. But even though we know that much of what you see was made because of a large asteroid impacting the surface, that doesn't mean that everything is solved. Because as certain pictures show, there is a bright coloration on the impact site that may have a different origin than originally perceived. The 2 likely options are that there was lava that hardened within the crater, possibly from the impact of the asteroid, or when the asteroid hit, it was able to kick up a lot of particulate matter that fell down into the crater, and thus, because of some of these bright areas that we see now. Hence why we need to further study Venus, so we can figure out more about these craters, their origins, why they are the way they are, and so on. Number 6. Venus's volcanoes. When you think about Earth, it has many things that can shape the land, and one of them is volcanoes. They literally create islands when they erupt out of the ocean, and they can cause widespread destruction when they're erupting above the waters, like with Pompeii or Montana. Yet, did you know that Venus has a lot of volcanoes as well? To the extent that there are apparently just as many volcanoes on Venus as there are on Earth. What's more, it helped make the planet what it is today. Much of the Venusian surface appears to have been shaped by volcanic activity in some way, shape, or form. Venus has several times as many volcanoes as Earth, and it has 167 large volcanoes that are over 100 kilometers across. The only volcanic complex of this size on Earth is the Big Island of Hawaii at 154 kilometers. This is not because Venus is more volcanically active than Earth, but because its crust is older. Earth's oceanic crust is continually recycled by subduction at the boundaries of tectonic plates and has an average age of about 100 million years, whereas the Venusian surface is estimated to be between 300 and 600 million years old. The volcanic activity is also believed to be a major reason that the atmosphere is what it is today. Furthermore, unlike Earth, there is no water to hide the volcanoes. Many of Earth's volcanoes are underground, and as a result of that, they aren't fully noticed until they erupt and spring out of the water to create islands like Hawaii and others. But on Venus, they're just there. And there are plenty of pictures showcasing these volcanoes and their impressive size. Oh, and the biggest volcano on Venus? It has a height of being 8 kilometers above the surface. What's more, it's still said to be incredibly active. Imagine if that thing blew up on Venus and we're able to watch it. That would be quite a sight indeed. Number 5. Venus's climate history. One of the biggest questions that have been put out about our sister planet is the question of life. For example, modeling studies have suggested that ancient Venus had big oceans and a clement climate that might have persisted for several billion years. Then, obviously, the greenhouse effect took over and roasted the planet to the point where everything boiled and life on the planet became impossible to have and sustain. However, now some people are saying that this wasn't an option at all for the planet. A study was published in October that said that Venus had always been too hot in order to not just have water, but to have life of any kind. Number 4. Greenhouse effects on Venus. Scientists led by Martin Turbe, a postdoctoral researcher at the Geneva Astronomical Observatory in Switzerland, simulated the climate of ancient Venus using a new model, and they came up with very different results than what was put out before by others. According to them, the cloud cover on Venus during its early days was very limited, and just as bad, the ones that they did have didn't bounce away any of the sunlight that was literally beaming down on them. As such, these clouds were actually helping warm the planet, and when they did that, they helped build up the greenhouse effect to a great degree, thus ensuring the planet would roast in no time flat. If the authors are correct, Venus was always a hellhole, astronomers James Casting and Chester Harman said on the matter. The goal now is for the teams of astronomers to go and look at the land masses of Venus itself and determine what the true ancient climate of the place was. On our planet, such rocks form by metamorphic processes in which minerals change form without melting that occur in the presence of liquid water, Casting and Harman wrote. If the tesserae turn out instead to be basaltic, like normal seafloor on Earth, liquid water would not have been needed to generate them, further supporting Turbe and colleagues' hypothesis. The new study also found that Earth would likely have taken the Venusian route if the sun had been a bit brighter long ago. Number 3. Venus as a habitable zone. A young sun with 92% of the current brightness rather than 70% would probably have consigned our planet to hothouse status, according to the model developed by Turbe and his team. Why does that matter? Because right now many scientists are trying to find another Class M planet for us to go and live on in the future. Their parameters, for lack of a better word, is not to just find a planet that looks like Earth, but is within the habitable zone of the nearby sun. Not an easy thing to do for various reasons. But because of these models, just because we do find a planet like that, doesn't mean it'll be habitable apparently. Exoplanets that orbit near the inner edge of the conventional habitable zone, where liquid water can exist on a planet's surface, might not actually be habitable, the duo wrote. And if that is true, then Venus might have just opened our eyes not just to the uniqueness of our own planet compared to other habitable planets out there, but it gives us a chance to go and change our parameters for future colony sites, as well as to ensure that we study planets thoroughly, despite how they might appear, to ensure that we don't choose the wrong planet to colonize. And if you look at the surface of Venus even further, you'll see why we don't want to make the wrong choice of planet to try and colonize. Because Venus is truly littered with impact craters that showcase just how unprotected the planet was from cosmic bombardment. For example, the Dickinson crater is 70 kilometers across and has a very deep hole where the projectile hit so long ago. But putting that one to shame is the Isabella crater, which is over 160 kilometers in diameter, second only to the Meade crater we talked about earlier. Number 2. The theory behind the craters. While it's true that Venus isn't likely to get bombarded like before, that doesn't mean that it won't happen. Thus, why many are trying to learn more about these impact craters and ones like them to see how they were formed and what it might mean for the planet as a whole. Such as with one theory going around that an asteroid or similar space rock bounced off a younger Earth somehow and then collided with Venus. Given the constant shifting of the universe during the stated creation, that wouldn't be the most outlandish theory out there. But that's one of the things about Venus. There are a lot of theories out there, but few answers that truly answer the big questions. But in 2028, that is aiming to change with the Veritas probe that will be launched at Venus. After launching, Veritas will reach Venus about 7 months later and enter orbit around the planet. Over the next year, it will use Venus's upper atmosphere to slow down and circularize its orbit to about 250 kilometers from the planet's surface to map Venus in detail for years. Number 1. Venus and the Veritas program. Veritas's radar will map Venus's entire surface at 30 meters per pixel, at least 3 times higher resolution than NASA's previous Venus mapper Magellan. The maps will finally help scientists understand how Venus's surface changes today and how it has transformed over tens of millions of years. Veritas will also create coarse 3D maps of Venusian landforms at 5 meters per pixel height resolution to help scientists find hints of tectonic activity. Scientists will further scan the maps for large buried impact basins, which might have formed around 4 billion years ago when large asteroids and comets were bombarding the inner solar system. If Venus doesn't have several impact basins like other rocky worlds do, it means the planet's surface has been actively reshaped for that long. The other reason that Veritas is needed is because it'll finally be able to do deep scans on the composition of the rocks on the planet to determine if there was water on the planet, as well as reveal in full whether the planet is volcanically active. All of this will lead to the big question that the satellite will hopefully answer in: can Venus be habitable? And yes, right now it isn't, but if the Veritas and other factors help reveal it can be changed through external means, then that'll mean we will not have to travel far to colonize a new world, but rather just go next door. And what an image that would be!